"Daniel, I'm out for now," his wife hollered from the foyer, followed by the sound of the door slamming shut. Sipping the last of his coffee at his desk, Daniel booted up his computer. Since shifting to a remote gig, nearly all his mornings kicked off like this. He and his wife, Amelia, cohabitated in a cozy studio apartment on the city's fringes. A few months back, Amelia was also assigned to work from home. Given that both their jobs involved incessant phone calls, to avoid getting in each other's hair, they decided to take turns heading to a vacant spot where they had fashioned separate workstations. Today, it was Amelia's turn to occupy that remote office, leaving Daniel to toil from home. This arrangement helped keep them from getting on each other's nerves, but mind you, they didn't hit upon this idea overnight. There had been a fair share of built-up tension and heated arguments. Eventually, a middle ground was found. A few friends of theirs had already split up due to the strain of remote work and constant bickering, but Amelia and Daniel were determined not to follow suit. They still saw one another in the evenings and during weekends, much like old times. Having shared several years together, they rented a snug studio while diligently saving up for the down payment on a mortgage. It hadn't always been a walk in the park, but somehow they pulled through. However, the fervor in their relationship started to dwindle, giving way to more pressing concerns like housing. One fine day, Daniel found himself once again toiling away at his home office. After a long and convoluted conversation with a client, he reclined in his chair, taking a moment to catch his breath. Feeling the need for a short respite, he sauntered towards the kitchen to brew himself a cup of tea, only to discover an empty box where the tea bags once resided. Well, perhaps there's still some loose leaf tea left, he pondered as he reached for the top cabinet where their supplies were stored. As he swung open the cabinet door, something peculiar caught his eye. A box peeking out from behind the tea can. It had not been there before. Nudging the jar aside, Daniel retrieved a small velvet box. Seems like Amelia decided to get a head start on New Year's Eve, he mused, a smile gracing his face. This year, due to family matters, Daniel found himself obliged to journey to the Far East. Amelia made the choice to stay behind, opting not to splurge on pricey New Year's Eve tickets and instead save up for a down payment. Better for her to wait for her husband here. They agreed to reconnect with old friends and bide her time with delight. Furthermore, Daniel wanted to spare his wife from the burdens and troubles of his family, preferring that she patiently await his return in the serenity of their home. In light of these circumstances, the couple decided to exchange their New Year's greetings in advance, acknowledging that they would not be able to do so on the actual eve. "I wonder what lies within this box," pondered Daniel. Overcome by curiosity, he gingerly unlatched it, revealing a pair of gleaming cufflinks. The sight filled him with astonishment, for he did not anticipate such a gift, as he typically eschewed the wearing of shirts that necessitated such accessories, favoring instead attire that prioritized comfort and practicality. Feeling a bit disheartened, Daniel closed the box and returned it to its place in the closet. Throughout the remainder of the day, he mused over the perplexing gift. It dawned on him that Amelia had often expressed admiration for sophisticated men's suits and had subtly hinted at his own attire. Perhaps this surprise was her way of encouraging him to embrace a more refined style, but it still seemed a tad peculiar. As New Year's Eve approached and Daniel's departure loomed, they made preparations together. Following their agreed plans, they set the table, indulged in their favorite music, and engaged in pleasant conversation. "Darling, I have a surprise for you," Amelia spoke mysteriously, presenting Daniel with a vibrant envelope. Lost in his thoughts about the cufflink box, he didn't immediately react to the gift. "Come on, open it, and see what's inside," Amelia urged emphatically, shaking the envelope. Finally, Daniel took hold of the gift, still perplexed by the unfolding situation. As he opened the envelope, he discovered a certificate for a thrilling parachute jump. "I thought it would be good for you to take a break from work and add some excitement to your life," Amelia said with a playful smile. Daniel responded with a faint smile, for she knew that he wasn't fond of heights, even reluctantly boarding airplanes. Expressing his gratitude to his wife, Daniel handed her his gift. Couldn't help but dwell on the box he had stumbled upon in the closet. Whose intended recipient could it be? His wife had no male friends or brothers. A sense of suspicion stirred within him, yet Daniel decided to refrain from confronting Amelia directly for now. A couple of days went by and Daniel was already getting ready for his journey to visit his relatives. But then, out of the blue, his mother called with surprising news. There was no need for him to travel at all. Everything was just fine, and the issue could be resolved without his presence. "Son, you still have time to return the ticket. You need the money now, and there will still be enough time for you to fly to us," she informed him. Hearing this, Daniel couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. Not only was his family situation sorted out, but he also no longer had to worry about the hassle of traveling. On that very same day, he returned the ticket. However, his wife chose to keep the cancellation of the trip a secret. Determined to discover the intended recipient of the gift, Daniel made it his mission to uncover her plans for the 31st. Amelia mentioned she planned to celebrate with their closest pals. Daniel couldn't shake off the worst-case scenarios playing in his mind, yet he clung to a shred of optimism. If it was all just a misunderstanding, he'd simply join in the festivities. But deep down, he had this nagging feeling that his wife was pulling the wool over his eyes. On the day he was supposed to leave, Daniel packed his bags and stepped out, asking Amelia not to bother with the goodbyes, so she busied herself with tidying up. He rented a modest room in a hotel and settled in, nerves on edge. All would come to a head on December 31, a date that would reveal everything. It was a day of celebration, yet Daniel's spirits were far from jubilant. He donned inconspicuous attire and made his way to his house. Settling in a cafe across the street, he anxiously awaited Amelia. As the evening approached, she emerged from the entrance adorned and with an exquisite hairstyle. Glancing at her watch now and then, she patiently awaited a cab. When the vehicle arrived, Daniel swiftly emerged from the cafe and slipped into his nearby parked car. Stealthily tailing the cab, he endeavored to avoid any suspicion. The taxi driver eventually pulled up beside a posh restaurant in the heart of the city. Continuing a bit further, Daniel located a parking lot and parked there. He peered into the side mirror, observing his wife alight from the car, wrapped in a luxurious fur coat, and enter the establishment. After a brief wait, Daniel emerged from his car and trailed in the same direction. He paused by the window of the restaurant, straining to catch a glimpse of his wife. Finally, he beheld Amelia seated at a table, holding a glass and sharing hearty laughter. Then Daniel shifted his gaze slightly, and a rupture occurred within him. His wife was sitting with another man in an elegant suit. The face seemed vaguely familiar. The man pondered for a moment, and suddenly the recollection struck him. It was her former boyfriend, Maverick, whom she had dated prior to their marriage. When she and Daniel had first crossed paths, she had recently severed ties with him. While Daniel was engulfed in disbelief, recalling every detail with clarity, Amelia, on the other side of the window, revealed a luxurious velvet box, her face alight with joy. She extended it toward the man beside her, prompting him to lean in and kiss his beloved with tenderness. An overwhelming rage surged within Daniel, snapping him out of his daze. In a flash, he burst into the restaurant, making a beeline for his wife's table. Amelia could hear the heavy footsteps approaching and glanced toward Daniel, only for horror to ignite in her eyes as she attempted to rise from her seat. Yet it was too late. Her husband had already lunged at the unsuspecting Maverick beside her, followed by a harsh slap directed towards her. With fury resonating throughout the dining area, Daniel bellowed that he never wanted to see her in his home again, declaring emphatically that she should vanish from his life forever. The patrons were left in stunned silence, while the waitstaff implored Daniel to leave. For him, this was undeniably the most dreadful New Year's Eve he had ever faced, but there was no way he was going to let it slide. He recalled Amelia mentioning that she and Maverick had called it quits because he planned to rekindle a romance with a former flame. Through various common friends, he learned that Maverick was indeed Wade. Clearly, he wasn't the sole victim of deception. He dialed Maverick's wife's number and spilled the beans. What followed was a vehement uproar. The belongings of the deceitful partners were tossed out onto the street, and their subsequent fate was a matter of their own moral reckoning. Daniel kicked off the new year by initiating a divorce. It seemed that amidst the marital strife, things between Amelia and Maverick had not gone smoothly either, as the disloyal wife repeatedly tried to reach out to Daniel, pleading for forgiveness, but he stood his ground firmly. One cannot step into the same river twice. Thus, the estranged spouses welcomed the new year on clean slates, each embarking on separate paths.